you've got to position your ideas so that they think it's their idea.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we will be discussing the struggles and lessons learned along the journey of a seven-figure entrepreneur. It's my great pleasure to welcome our guest today, Ron Browning with IntelliBrate. Ron, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.
You bet. We're excited to learn a little bit more about you and about your company. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Ron, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, please share with us your story. When did you first decide you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What did that look like? Where have you been able to get to throughout your journey? Maybe share a few key lessons learned along the way, but ultimately, we just want to hear about your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've come from an entrepreneurial background. Growing up, my dad had tire stores and car dealerships, and I remember as young as 12 years old, I was working in Texas at the tire store. It's 100 and something degrees outside in the summer. I was doing 50 hours a week in the summertime, and I had a woman that looked at me, and I was a skinny little kid, and I'm trying to lift this tire up, and I had to roll it over my feet and lift it up onto the car and push it on. And I'm black from head to toe with tire dirt and everything else. And she said, "Does your mom know you're here?" And I was like, "I don't know. Ask my dad." And I pointed over to my dad over there. So, ever since being a small kid, and both my parents were very hard workers, and they instilled a lot of that in me. So I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. And, I got out of college and I was in graduate school, and I started a real estate investment company. And it was part of a project for the master's program. And that actually ended up spinning out into a mortgage company because I started off in this space, and this gentleman said, "Hey, you're really smart. I've got this mortgage aspect. You want to try and partner up?" And so that ended up being my direction away from finishing my MBA. Started up the mortgage company. I ended up acquiring the mortgage company from the partner and growing it to be a pretty successful mortgage brokerage. And I'm, running around in my 20s in a nice little Porsche, and life was pretty good. I ended up selling that mortgage company and, recognizing that the internet was going to be a big thing. And so I was dabbling around with some internet stuff, and a good friend of mine who had worked at Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture, he had moved out to San Francisco, had another guy that they were starting a .com, and said, "Look, you're really smart. I want you to come out and join us." And so I picked up my stuff. I moved to San Francisco, and the three of us started what became a financial services .com.
Okay.
And we played around with some different concepts. There was, everybody had their own concept, but I'm a very tenacious person, and I had a concept in mind where it was financial services, multiple financial services, one-stop shop, and there was competing programs that they wanted to try and promote, but I spent months going through, and I found a 1-800 number that matched a website domain that was the domain we got for $9, and the 1-800 number was available and we got for $10 a month. And they were looking at like $1 million plus, domains and we didn't have that kind of money. We were a startup, right?
Right.
So by virtue of my tenacity and packaging all that together, we started a company called Creditland. And Creditland went from 3 to 246 people in less than 2 years.
Wow.
We had that whole .com thing, and it was such an amazing experience. And honestly, it was a little bit funny too at the time. Like, there was so much money being thrown at all the .coms because this is the late 90s and all of that. And as a much younger man at the time, you could go out, and every night there was a launch party. And it's like, you go up to the launch party, it's open bar and food and all this. And the guy at the door would be like, "Okay, where's your invite?" "Well, I work for sweatily.com." And they're like, "Oh, come on in." So it was a really interesting time, fun time, and challenging,
Right.
to grow at that pace, to be able to like start thinking about all these things. And the one thing that I hit upon then that I'm still really passionate about now is performance marketing. And so, back then we were talking to Yahoo about a contract and hey, we want to get this placement. And they're like, okay, so it's going to be like $1 million a month. And I'm like, well, yeah. But we had a lot of investment money and it's like, well, what do we get out of that? And Yahoo's like, you get a gazillion eyeballs. And I'm like, eyeballs? And they're like, yeah, people on the page. I'm like, but how does that translate to business?
Right.
And they're like, well, you're paying for the eyeballs. And I'm like, I don't want to pay for eyeballs. I want to pay for customers. Oh, right. No. Like, you get the branding and you get all this like nonsense, right? And that was the model for a long time and still is in some areas today. And we built that company on a, pay for performance business model that I'm still passionate about today. So, we were working with Bank of America and MBNA, which isn't around anymore, but got acquired, and all these other like financial companies. And we were getting paid for, sales. And why I'm so passionate about that is like going all the way back to this major bank, and I'm not going to name which one it was, but this major bank had shared their, approval scorecard with us. So this is like very secret stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we were passing people over. So we had kind of coded in that scorecard. We're passing people over to the bank, and they're only approving 68% of the people. We're like, well, how's that possible?
Right.
Because we've got your filters. And so they had a team of a bunch of people, and we had a team of a bunch of people, and we're all in a room, and we're like talking through it. And it turns out our FICO, Fair Isaac, lending scorecard was the latest and greatest. And theirs was like 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, this is a major bank. And it was like, oh. And so they were like, oh, okay. And they updated their scorecard. And then bam, we shot up to like 96% approval rate of the stuff we were sending over. And that was my big lesson that, yeah, sending leads over is fine, but that's something we never would have figured out, right? But when we're getting paid on sales and then the sales aren't happening, we're trying to work together because we're trying to achieve the same thing. Yeah. And that's when we get some real magic, honestly. And that's where the win-win is. So, ever since then, I've been very performance minded. And the dot-com crash came and we kind of, sold it off, but we didn't really come out like, I didn't end up being able to buy an island, which was, originally, we'll go public, I'll buy the island, things will be great. And, like a lot of those businesses got caught off guard. So, and there's a world where with a different mindset, we could have gone public and we could have, like now today, you don't have that same philosophy of like, just generate the people. Like we'll worry about the revenue later. And even back then I was talking to the team and saying, hey, why don't we be profitable when we go public? Whoa. No, you don't want to do that. And I'm like, why not? And the one other person was like, well, you're gonna just ruin our model and everything. And I'm like, so in retrospect, I think it would have been the right thing to do. Right. But from there, I was able to take a lot of what I learned, and I continued to work in digital marketing. And I ended up going over to a couple of companies, a smaller company where I was really helping to grow. And it was a little bit of a frustrating environment because there was an owner that, wasn't really using data or any of that. Moved from there to a company called eLoan. And still, today I have great memories of my time over at eLoan. They were like #1 for public trust. It was an online mortgage company, basically.
Okay.
And, when I went over, they had already gotten a ton of money. I was like number 950 employee. We had a location where everybody went into work, and worked there. Quickly worked my way up to the head of business development, because I was just good at putting pricing together for stuff. I was overseeing like affiliates, people that were sending us deals and getting compensated for it. And then I was able to put together a compensation model. But typically, the compensation models had been very flat. We'll give
Okay.
you X number of dollars per application, right?
Right.
Well, every application wasn't worth the same amount to us.
Right.
So I created this table and I said, if you send me this one, you get paid a ton of money, right? Like over a 720 FICO score and all that. And if you send me this scrappy one, you're only going to get this. But on the platform where people would go and try and find new providers is like up to, XXX dollars for the best of the best. And that was like the headline. We got tons of people like signing up. And because we were paying a lot less for the bad stuff or the
Right.
less valuable and more, we quickly shot up to be like the number one performer on that platform. Our sales like crushed it over at the company. And so I started managing business development. And it was a really good run, but what I found there, and then even at my next gig, which was in the mortgage industry as well, was I hate politics. I mean,
Okay.
like office politics and, being in business development, I was coming up with these great ideas. And I had a chief marketing officer at the time who is still very near and dear to me. And she's like, look, you've got to position your ideas so that they think it's their idea. And then they can run with. I'm like, I don't even know how. That's so painful. And like
Right.
all of these ways that within the organization you needed to go around this way or get this done that way. Like, why can't we just be straightforward? Hey, what about this? Oh, that's a great idea. Like,
Right.
so, after those frustrations within, large organizations and, even at the top, like the next job I took after being head of business development was part of the executive team at a bigger mortgage company that had like 3,000 employees. And there was still all this politics and people not looking at data. And like, even with the prior engagement, like part of my compensation was based on this chart, right? And this chart had here's the sales volume and
Okay.
here's the marketing cost of revenue. And you know, a lower marketing cost of revenue and a lower sales volume paid this. And a much higher, with a much higher cost of revenue, paid this. And I was like, guys, do you realize that you make $7 million more here, but you're paying me more because I'm getting you a lower cost of marketing, but you're making $7 million less? And they're
Right.
like, we understand that. And I'm like, how is that? I'm like,
Do you really understand that?
and apparent, like, well, the lesson there honestly was everybody's got their metrics that they're trying to hit, and it may not necessarily make sense. And it's really the importance of compensation plans and metrics and,
Right.
unforeseeable circumstances of some compensation plans, because so many companies don't really think the compensation plans through. And that was just an example of like, and sure enough, I mean, I hit it, and I was making bank, and okay, guys, this is easier. Like
Right.
$7 million less. So after those engagements, a lot of frustration with the politics in the office, and a lack of reliance on data. Too many people at the top like trusting their gut, and this is the way it should go, and often being proven that I'm right, but only for it to be too late for the company, right?
Right.
I decided to start my own thing, and so I was doing consulting at first, and that was it was really good. But what I recognized was that I'm only going to make as much money as I have hours in the month,
Okay.
and that I need to figure out a way that I can make money when I'm sleeping, or more money, or exponential amount of money. And look, I mean, this is a long time ago. I was getting a nice chunk of change, $250 an hour back in the early 2000s, and it led to a nice lifestyle, but it wasn't going to get me like what I was really looking for. And I never lost the whole dot com burning desire to really grow a company. And so it was about that time that I started IntelliBrate, and um, we were actually called Funeral Home Resource at the time. So we
Okay.
were focused on the funeral industry because there was a serious lack of opportunity there. And that was a whole learning experience in and of itself. We were providing really great results, but to a market that didn't really understand the data. And
Okay.
so, and we were even rolling out our performance based model then. And I was starting it off with some smaller groups. And like one of the learnings there was we had a lead come in, it converted to a sale. It was like a $7,800 sale. And I forget, it was like 10% or whatever that we were supposed to get. And I was like, hey, I'm ready for that commission. And the guy was like, yeah, but that guy goes to my church. I'm like, what? No, it came through. We paid ad, they clicked, they
Right.
called. And he's like, no. This guy was coming in anyhow. And I was like, so one of my early learnings for a performance-based model was you've got to work with somebody that's like the VP of sales or the SVP of sales who's got sales goals, and he's just trying to hit his sales goals. And he wants to make sure that you're getting paid everything that you're supposed to because you're helping him do everything that the company's asking.
Right.
Whereas if the guy that's writing your check and overseeing what you're getting paid is the same guy whose bank account it's coming out of, it's what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? And it's just not working. Like it doesn't work on a small scale, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So that was a big learning. As we grew, we were able to get our first big client was on a pay per sale basis. And so we took a company, and it was a big company, and they had 23 locations, and they were like, hey, we like this model. Because the model that we did back then and we still do today is we're going to come in, and you need a lot of help. You need a new website, you need SEO, you need SEM, you need all this stuff. But you don't understand digital marketing. You don't want to spend millions of dollars on a digital marketing team in-house.
Right.
You are pleased with your acquisition costs, but you just don't have the volume that you'd like to have. So we said, look, what's it cost you now? And we took that dollar amount, and then we said, we'll do it for that same dollar amount. And so back then it was a 5-year term, and we signed them up with a 5-year term, and we took them from less than 100 sales to more than 700 sales per month in less
Wow.
than 2 years. We helped them grow from 23 to 57 locations. And all the while, like our compensation was really going up, but theirs was too. So they're
Right.
making all this extra revenue. We're reinvesting a lot of that. It was a great partnership. And 10 years later, some of the people that were worked with there hired my company again. So that paper sale, there's plenty of difficulties in establishing paper sale.
Right.
It's got to be the right size opportunity for us to invest all that. It's got to be a relatively low sales cycle, right? Because even if it's a $2 million deal where we could get 10% or whatever, like if it takes you a year or 2 years to close that deal, first of all, I don't know how good your salespeople are.
Right.
They can't close, right? And then I really can't fund the advertising for a year and hope that happens, right?
Yeah.
So typically smaller sales cycles, bigger opportunities, lots of locations, regional, national works really well. Multi-locations works super well because one of the ways that both on paper sale and for our fixed fee clients that we're able to really like have a serious impact on their revenue is, IntelliBrate creates dashboards, and it says, here's your return on ad spend by location. And we've
Right.
got clients that are literally saying, okay, out of my 18 locations, let's sort by return on ad spend. Why am I spending $10,000 on these bottom three? Let's move that to the top three. And they're just printing money that way. And they keep moving that money until, diminishing returns, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the founding of IntelliBrate. We quickly moved away from the funeral only industry, branded as IntelliBrate, and spent some time and energy on our marketing and everything else. And we've gone out and now our business model really is that we're focused on high value items, right? So it's got to be worth at least $2,500, $3,500 a sale. And we do lead generation for companies that have a sales team that's either going to do an online or an in-person visit, and then that's going to come to some type of fruition. So we've really become expert at, sending in the leads and then building out a data model, making sure that the CRM is capturing all that. And then we've got a team that ties into the CRM, is grabbing like the lead to appointment and the appointments and the missed appointments, the proposals, the revenue, and then we're building out these dashboards, and we're able to show them this location's performing, or this product's performing, or this salesperson's performing, or any number of variety of things, and also tie that back to the marketing campaigns. Hey, guess what? Google's underperforming Bing. We're going to move money from Google over to Bing. Facebook is driving a lot of leads, but you're not converting many. So let's think about, if you've got to keep giving those to somebody, do we give it to the lower converters? Like there's so many levers
Right.
that can be pulled to enhance the profitability. So yeah, and we historically were a virtual company. So for the longest time, we were, a distributed team, and I recognized, and it's about, I think, 2019 when we finally moved into an office full time. Actually, January of 2019, and I was just looking at this chart this morning, that we weren't building a culture. We'd get key team members, and then all of a sudden they disappear, and it's like one step forward, two steps back sometimes, because you've got so much of the business relying on them. We didn't have team members interacting enough to where they were like learning from one another. So we had tried to establish an in-house team for a while. We had like a co-working space for a bit, but finally we like bit the bullet in 2019, set up our headquarters in Austin, Texas, and then started having everybody come into the office. And 2019 was a phenomenal year for us. We established so many things. We, really set up better sales processes and expanded our offering and enhanced our team to where we had much, a deeper, more experienced team, and really had some great growth. 2020 hit, 2020, half of 21. We were mostly remote during COVID, partially hybrid, but it like went up in 19, way up. It went flat for a little bit, and then here we are, like back in the office. Now we're hybrid. We do 3 days a week. We do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in office, and honestly, it's like night and day. We've got whiteboards everywhere. We've got TVs where we can share. We're constantly having like collaborative meetings. And I know so many companies are really big on the remote work thing, but to me, hybrid's fantastic because at least we can't get the same type of interaction and learnings and what have you, on a screen that we can in person. So, we've just recently moved into a new space. We were really fortunate. We found a great space. It's way more room than we need, but with the current office environment, you can get a pretty great deal. So, we've been expanding the team, really trying to build up the quality. That's one of the other things that, I'm seeing lately in the last year and a half to 2 years, really trying to upgrade and really trying to, live that Steve Jobs mantra of, one A player is worth 5 or 6 B players, or maybe he said 3 or 4. But seeing that,
Yeah.
yeah, it really hurts when you look at that salary. But then when you see that they're running circles around 5 other people, and that you don't have to oversee it at all, you give it to them, and it comes back better than you could have done.
Yeah.
It's life changing. And so, yeah, we were fortunate in getting Inc. 5000 a couple of years in a row, around 20 or 21, because it's a comparison from prior. So we had some pretty phenomenal growth from that
Right.
being in office in 19. And then the last 4 years in a row, we've gotten the fastest growing companies in the Americas from Financial Times.
Awesome.
And yeah, so now we've recently hired a PR agency, and we're trying to build up our awards and all of that, really going after larger clients that can appreciate the depth of the team that we built.
Awesome. Wow, what a story, Ron. Thank you so much for sharing. I love your intentionality around constantly looking for opportunities to learn in every situation along your journey. You brought up that intentionality around, you know what? I've learned this lesson, and then I'm immediately going to apply it into my next venture that I went into. And you just kept doing that over and over and over again. And I hope that people listening really clued in and paid attention to that, because that's what got you to where you're at today, is this deep understanding of, okay, well, I tried this, it didn't work. I learned this lesson. I'm going to apply this here. And you just kept learning and learning and learning what worked, what didn't work. When it came to your compensation plans, when it came to the way that you build out, you just kept on learning all these little pieces so that you could come up with this formula. And I love the intentionality around why you were doing it, because the whole time you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this to help these people. Mm-hmm. Because originally you're like, it doesn't do me any good to send you a whole bunch of leads if you don't even know what to do with them. And I think my favorite part of the story was when you had that bank and you guys were on a different card, and you saw a problem and you're like, we got to fix this problem. And the intentionality around saying, okay, let's all get in the same room. Let's talk this through. Man, how many companies out there would have just been like, okay, well, this is just a losing battle, and then moved on? And you're like, nope, we're going to figure this out. And you jumped in, you figured it out, and then boom, you immediately saw results. So yeah, just what an amazing story. I love what you're doing. I love what your company's doing in going in and really saying, hey, look, this is how we're going to do this. And it's more of we're not just going to do all the work for you. We're going to do this work, show you what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then set you up for the best possible results, rather than just, hey, we know everything, you don't understand it, we're just going to send you leads. Because, let's be honest, there's a lot of companies out there that's what they do. They just send leads, right? And so I love your intentionality around saying, no, we're going to do this in a different way, because not only do we want to send you leads, but we want to collaborate with you and ensure that you're going to be successful. And that's why we're going to do this pay per sale model, because then that way you can see, hey, the only way we're going to get paid is if we're ensuring that you're getting the results that you want.
Right.
And I love that. That's so awesome.
And it's a core part. We also have what we call a subscription plan, where you pay a fixed fee, right? And that is, available to any company. But we still use that same paper sale mentality, and we're diving deep to figure out, like, hey, part of our exercise is always, let's look at your CRM. And so we're getting all these leads in, and it may be that they've got a text field of like, why didn't this work, right?
Right.
And people are putting in 100 million different reasons why it didn't work, and we're like, that doesn't work. Let's put a drop down. Let's talk to your top sales guy. Why does this typically not work? It's out of area, they failed credit, or they didn't have the budget, right? Maybe it's 3 primary categories. Great. Let's standardize that, make them a drop down. So now we've got a good data point, and then we can see, well, we're getting lots of don't have the credit, right? So let's change our wording in the ads to try and keep people with bad credit from clicking. Available to high credit worthy individuals, or credit worthy individuals, apply, or any number of things. And then all of a sudden their costs are going down. They're getting less of the bad leads, and they're happier. Like, they have to work less on better leads to get the same revenue.
And all you have to do is say, hey, look, we already have this data. We just need to start collecting it so that we can use it.
Yes.
Right? And so often I see this all the time in small business where they don't have the process in place to capture the data,
Right.
and then they're making decisions based off inaccurate information. And it's like, guys, you have all of the information you need. You just need to create a process, collect it, and then you just need to use that when you're making your decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, again, Ron, what an awesome journey. What an awesome story that you have. Man, so cool how many different businesses that you were able to be a part of, and the impact that you're able to have on each of them as you were learning and growing and figuring this out. And it sounds like you've created a great business that you're running right now. But let's switch gears just a little bit for a
Sure.
few minutes.
Yeah.
As it pertains to you continuing to strive to be the leader that you want to be within your organization, and as you're building and developing this team that you're working with, what's something that you're dealing with real time that we can have a conversation about?
Not too long ago, it was specific to COVID and the environment for salaries and everything else. And so
Right.
it's changed a lot now, but for a while, the ball was really in the court of the employees. And it was insane, like because of all this money was being flushed in, people were spending it, all, the Googles and the Facebooks and everybody were like they're 2x and 3xing their teams. So
Right.
they're going out and throwing Google money around. And so, I've got my team and they're looking at like, oh, hey, I can get 35% more. But, and I had people come in twice in a year asking for raises. Oh, hey, what about this? And what about this? And
Right.
honestly, turnover got to be high. And, and turnover, like the smaller the team, the more expensive turnover is.
Yeah.
and,
Absolutely.
and you lose one key person and it's can be disastrous, and that was
Yeah.
especially true. And this is like the hardest part is when you've got a team of single person departments
Yep.
and there's no backup. And I've been told by others, and it became very true, like as soon as we've got two people per role, we've got somebody that can fill in, and life is pretty easy. But if
Yeah.
you don't have a backup for a role, then it's like we're scrambling and maybe I'm filling in or any number of different things. But, you know, we recognized all this and then we took a step back and we said, okay, let's start asking the team, let's figure it out. And we got a lot of feedback from the team. What are the things that you want to see and all of this? And so, it wasn't all monetarily driven. Some of it was, but 401ks and health plans and life insurance and all these different things. So
Right.
we put together a super solid package that competes with a lot. We still have it to this day where, we pay 100% of a really good health plan, and we pay for dental, vision. There's a life insurance policy that comes with it, and there's an annual bonus, lots of things around that. We've been able to dramatically reduce. Now, the environment's changed as well, right?
Right.
But that package really helped. And then also like team building events. So, at least once a quarter, we're trying to take the whole team out and, do some type of event. And every year we'll, go to a really nice dinner and have the, holiday party. A few years back when we were a much smaller team, we went to Croatia and we
Oh, wow.
got a little mini mansion on the beach, and probably 90% of the team had never been overseas or out of the country. So it was absolutely phenomenal. Most of that core team is still with us today, and has such fond memories of that. And part of that was it was both a great idea, but it was also we work with some overseas contractors in one particular department that, because of the still existing COVID regulations at the time, couldn't fly in to see us, which typically they would do, but they could drive to Croatia. And
Oh,
so we're
wow.
like, okay, we got this new big account. We want to be able to meet in person to brainstorm. Let's take our team over to Croatia. So it was always fairly expensive to bring them in, but we liked to do that for big accounts because we could spend a week and really get it dialed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and doing all of that stuff and then paying attention, making sure that we have like these annual bonuses and stuff like that. Like turnover has gotten to be much, much, much lower. It's made it much easier on the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope everybody was paying attention, because that's the key. Is a lot of people talk about, well, as a leader, I have these different roles. Here at Elite, we think of it as this. So we have what we call the Elite Leadership Model, and we say, hey, as a leader, you really only have three things that you have to accomplish as a leader. You need to set the vision, you need to build your team, and you need to deliver results. And then at the center of all of those is this idea or concept of care. You have to care about the purpose, and you have to care about the individual. And again, I hope everybody was paying attention to what you were saying there, because what you were doing is you're absolutely identifying that what you're doing is you went, okay, I have this turnover issue. I'm going to care about all these people. I'm going to bring them together. We're going to talk through it. And then I'm going to see what I can do to offset this need or desire for them to want to go elsewhere. Where's that stemming from? And like I said, there were a few of them. It was all just about the paycheck.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the majority of them, it wasn't. And it was like, okay, so let's brainstorm. Let's see what we can do to provide an atmosphere that makes them say, yeah, I'm not so worried about, maybe Google can offer me more money if I go and I join this 3,000, 2 million person team or whatever. I can stay here where I like it. My boss cares about me, and I have everything that I need to live the life that I want to live.
The other thing that we did as well was we started mapping out more of a career path and helping people understand, where do you go from here, right? Because since that time, we've probably doubled the size of our team, and we're like, look, this is how you grow. These are the things that you do. You set up, you own your little domain, you make sure that it's scalable, repeatable process, that we can continually give great results. And then as the company grows, we start growing your team. And naturally, we'll hire people under you if you've proven yourself to be able to do that and oversee that. And that was, a big important part too, because in a smaller company, people are like, where am I going to go from here?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that idea of understanding, hey, I'm going to dream with you a little bit as the employee. Where do you see yourself in the next 1, 2, 3 years from now? And hey, just so you know, this is what the company's going to look like in the next 1, 2, or 3 years from now. Yeah. Right. And that clarity is huge. So we always think of this term called clarity is kindness. And it really is. For somebody to be able to see clearly, okay, this is where I'm at today. I know what it looks like to win on a daily basis. So I know how what I'm doing is directly impacting the company's ability to be successful. Mm-hmm. I know how I'm contributing and being part of this. And I now have this path of progression where, hey, if I do really good here, I know that I can move into these other areas because somebody actually took the time to sit down and discuss that with me. And too often in small business, I see it all the time, you get so caught up in the day-to-day, you forget that it's important to always be dreaming and setting that vision with your employees so they can understand and be part of it.
Right.
And so I love that.
Hiring those A players also was really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
And, because they came in and the rest of the team is like, wow, now I can learn from these people too. And, that just an incredible amount of excitement around how they were going to be able to absorb so much, knowledge and experience from these A players. It was a big win.
Yeah, no, you see that all the time in sports, right? You have a really, really good team and they come and they play this team that's not so good. Guess what? That team usually has an amazing game. Why? Because they have this example of, oh, whoa, I gotta raise the bar, right? And so that's what you did. You brought in these A players and the rest of your team's like, oh, you know what? I can do that. I just got to learn. Okay, I'm gonna get to their level. Yeah, and it does amazing things in your company. No, I love that.
Yeah,
perfect. Well, Ron, this has just been such a fun episode. Thank you again so much for your willingness to join us. Share with us your story. Share with us your intentionality around what you're trying to create in your business, what you've already created, and that you're continuing to create. Just an awesome company. So congratulations to you on that. For those of you who are listening in, if you like what you heard about what Ron's doing and there at IntelliBrate, Ron, what's the best way that they can reach out to you and to IntelliBrate?
Just email me direct, Ron, R-O-N, @IntelliBrate.com.
Awesome. Super easy. You heard it here, guys. Don't hesitate. If you think even a little bit, hey, you know what? Maybe I could utilize Ron or his services. Or, hey, I just want to increase my network. I just want to reach out to this guy. He's cool. He knows a lot of stuff. I just love to have a conversation with him. Take action. He gave his information. Use it. Reach out to him. And then, as always, if you saw or heard something today that you're like, you know what? I really should probably start doing that. Please take action on it, because it's not until we actually take that step forward that we start to see the results we want. And if you heard something today, you're like, you know what? I know somebody that could also benefit from this. Please share this podcast with them. Let's create as much value and spread it as far as we can. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure being here with you today. This concludes another episode of the 7-Figure Journey podcast. Thank you again. And until next time, take care.